What's up, good people and fellow draft nerds? Here we are, our first draft season podcast. We are covering DBs today, cornerback safety. We're going to do a little bit different format here. Free agency kind of bit into a lot of film watching time. So Jamie covered safeties. I covered corners. And we are going to be doing corner safeties. We'll kind of go back and forth, but we got to cover some of the stuff we weren't able to, which was after we last recorded, which was yesterday. You've got a podcast. I think this is 5 or 6 days in a row now from us. Here's another one. After we recorded the last one, Trey Pipkins got signed. They made a release. So let's go ahead. Oh, that guy is totally right. We're on the wrong side. Thank you, Alex. I was under Jamie and he was under Garrett. Here we are on our right side. Everybody watching YouTube right now. Okay, so let's talk about it. So first things first, it felt like 5 minutes after we stopped down on our last recording, the Chargers they signed Trey Pipkins. It was 3 years. We don't know the details exactly on the breakdown. What we do know is it was reported 7.25 per year, which is close to a 3-year, $22 million deal for the Chargers' new right tackle.
Yeah, it's pretty much in the ballpark that we predicted on our show a few weeks ago. I think Garrett was a little lower. I was slightly higher, but we both kind of figured 3 years, somewhere in that $21 to $24 million range. Mm-hmm. And I think you're probably looking at probably $4 or $5 million in the first year in terms of a cap hit to spread the money out and give the Chargers some breathing room against the cap this year, which is good. I think, I've seen people celebrating the signing. I think they handled it really well, about as well as you could expect. There was a lot of fears early in the year that, that this deal might go as high as $10 million a year, mm-hmm. which we were all really fretting. There were some that were saying more like 5, and after doing some research, that seemed unlikely, and 9 or 10 seemed like it was entirely possible. So to settle under $8 million a year is, I think, a win financially for the Chargers. And I'm sure it's a low number this year. I'm sure there's an opportunity to get out of after year 1 or year 2 with minimal guarantees. So I think it's a win. It's a win-win. Pipkins earned that contract. He took a big step forward this year. He was a guy who had a very small sample size heading into the year of playing average to above average football. He added onto that this year, and they felt like they really needed to solidify the line and maintain that continuity. And I think they did a good job of locking down somebody who they're obviously pretty confident in. We'll see if he can continue to take those steps forward, or if he can even continue to play at the level he played at early in the year before he got hurt. But good for Pipkins, good for the team. I think it's a win-win situation, really, and it's onward and upward from here. Now they can focus on other needs, and they don't have to worry about necessarily taking an offensive lineman early in the draft like some people were talking about.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. I mean, I assume so. If we're thinking it's gonna be somewhere 3-year, just under 22 million, and we'll see maybe 5 million, 6 million this year. You gotta imagine there's going to be a ripcord in that contract either after year 1 or year 2. We'll see when we get those details, because really it was a really, really small sample size 2 years ago of some promising play from Pipkins. And then this season it was injury riddled, but when he was in, the line was at its best. So it proved that he was better when he was in the lineup than when he wasn't. He fought through a lot of injuries last season. So, I think the Chargers are definitely going to be protecting themselves in next year or the year after, just in case, because we've mentioned a lot here. Jamie said it a few times. I've said it a few times. We don't really know what we have in Trey Pipkins. The Chargers don't. So it's hard to really assess his value. I had him at $6 million per year. So I was a little under. I think it said 5 or 6 million per year. You were a little bit above, but they found somewhere a sweet spot in the middle, just a little bit over 7 million. And comparatively, Pipkins got what Andrew Wiley got with the Redskins, formerly of the Chiefs. So I think in terms of market value, that's a pretty good projection, because a guy who had some good play for the Chiefs, They could have got better, and they did by getting Javon Taylor if he's playing right tackle there. But Wiley a good 1-for-1 contract comparatively, so it makes sense. It was just under that. Wiley got 8 per year. I think it was 3-year, $24 million with the Commanders, but I think that's fair market value for a starting right tackle of his caliber. And yeah, it is nice that the Chargers have all 5 spots locked up now, and they can wait day 2, day 3 to kind of start to fill out those depth spots in the offensive line. Maybe get a developmental guy that you can sit for a year or 2 behind your starters. So it's a great move. In terms of market value, it's good for Pipkins. It's not as high as we had all feared it was going to be in the double digits. So it's a good deal, and they got their right tackle locked up.
Yeah, I think having that stability is important, but I do think you make a good point. Like you said, we've said it a lot. We really still don't know who Trey Pipkins is. I think he played like 200 snaps in 2021, played something like 850 snaps this year. Was good, maybe not as good as people were saying he was early in the year before he got hurt, but still was better than we expected. Mm-hmm. And I think the bar was so low for him that it was easy to get excited about how he was playing early in the year before he got hurt. Then he was hurt. He had all kinds of knee issues and high and low ankle sprains. And I mean, the fact that he played through all that stuff, I think kind of solidified the fact that they were going to re-sign him. But I think if you look at the way they handle Pipkins, it's really a good indication of, it's kind of a microcosm of how they've handled the offseason as a whole. And we've been talking about this in the Discord for the last hour or so, is, the Chargers have really, in my opinion, they did their due diligence heading into the free agency period. They really understood the markets for all of their free agents, restricted free agents, unrestricted free agents alike. And they basically let all these guys go out and test the market. We heard early in the week that they gave Drew Tranquill a fair offer. Mm-hmm. He turned it down. He wanted to test the market. They let Vejoko test the market. They let Parham test the market. They let Pipkins test the market, and all these guys sat, and a lot of them are still sitting. Yep. And it looks like, Pipkins got to the point where he was like, you know what? I'm over this. I tested the market. It didn't go the way I wanted it. Let's get something done.
Yeah.
And I think there's a good chance that some of we're going to see more of that over the next week or so. So I think they played this offseason really well. This is not something you hear from us really ever, is that they have played the market extremely well, and they've handled this offseason in terms of the way they've handled their guys, and even some of the external guys that we've heard they've been interested in, to basically perfection, near perfection. I mean, we'll see how things play out with Drew Tranquill. You can live without him, but I think they looked at all these guys and they were like, we can, we'd like to have you back, but if you want to go test the market, come back and let us know what you find. It's not going to kill us if you walk away, but hopefully we can get something done down the road. And I think it's important for these guys to learn what their market is like and what the interest really is versus, fans gassing them up and their agents gassing them up. And I think it helps kind of strengthen the relationship, and it might help get a deal done later, assuming you don't insult them early in the process, when things don't go the way they think they're going to go. So the Chargers, their scouts, their front office, the coaches, everybody deserve a lot of credit for a dramatically improved process in terms of how they've handled the offseason so far.
Yeah. And so we had talked about how, and I think you even mentioned, I expect a Pipkins signing soon yesterday after we recorded our podcast. And I know you didn't predict 30 minutes soon, but soon nonetheless. And then we said, Matt Filer, an easy cut candidate and a guy that they're probably not going to cut until they can fill the roster out. They signed Trey Pipkins. That deal gets done. And then they right afterwards, consecutively, cut Matt Filer, and they saved $6.5 million in the process. They got the right tackle fixed. They then know that Jamari Sawyer is the left guard of the future. They're able to take that money they save, basically apply it to the Pipkins deal. They fill in that spot with Sawyer. Right tackle is now taken care of. There were talks of they didn't know exactly where Sawyer was going to go. If it didn't work out with Pipkins, there was probably going to be a chance that they were going to try Sawyer out at right tackle. But once they got the right tackle at Pipkins, They slide Salyer in where they originally planned to draft him, left guard. And now you've got your line solidified, and you save some money with Filer, applied it to Pipkins, and you're all good.
Yeah, and you spend your money on Pipkins. You're cost controlled at both guard spots. You're cost controlled at left tackle. So you're at a position right now where you're really only spending big money at center.
Mm-hmm.
And Lindsley is, deservedly so. Lindsey is probably the second most important player on the offense behind Justin Herbert.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see how things break down when he's not on the field. So obviously he's very important and he's deserving of that money. But, you're talking about young, hopefully ascending players who are on cost controlled contracts and under control for 3 or 4 years. That's a good place to be when you're looking at extending your quarterback in the next 1 to 12 months. So, I think they're going about things the right way. And I think, you look at how they're filling out the roster. They haven't made a ton of moves in terms of signings, but what they are doing, and it's important, is they're setting themselves up to be able to focus on what they want to focus on in the draft. They don't have to draft an offensive lineman in the first 3 or 4 rounds. They can wait and focus on interior depth or tackle depth if they want to. They got their linebacker. They were in a position where they might have had to draft a linebacker really early if they had not gotten Kendricks. Now, if things work out and they get Drew Tranquil back, now linebacker is no longer an issue. Maybe they take somebody in the 5th or 6th round and plug them in, but they're set. They've got depth. They've got starters. They're in a position where they don't have to worry about that. And, we've heard whispers about John Johnson. That could really help with the safety room. Again, turning guys who should be depth into depth, buying some time for JT Woods to develop, and getting somebody back there who knows the defense, can play all over the defense, play deep, play in the box, whatever you need. Call the plays, take that off of Derwin's plate. It lessens the need to take a DB or a safety at least early. Mm-hmm. And I think it seems to me they're setting themselves up to hopefully focus on offensive skill players early in the draft. I think you're good chance you'll see a wide receiver, especially if things keep going the way they're going in free agency. I think good chance you see a wide receiver in the first 3 rounds, probably edge, maybe a tight end or a corner.
Dang. So, Our chat's gonna break it. I just got a text. Chargers signed Morgan Fox.
Another one who we said we thought would be back.
Yep.
And another example of the Chargers reading the market perfectly. They read the tea leaves. They let him go test the market. And voila, he's back 3 days into free agency. By the way, the same day that his coach was bitching and moaning on Twitter about how he should be making $8 to $10 million. And I'm sure he's making far less than that. So have we seen any reports on what the numbers look like? If anybody's got that, let me know.
I don't. I was waiting for you to stop talking, and I was going to tell you about it, but you just kept going on about how good the process was,
well, I can't help it. It's the best. I mean, it's like an out-of-body experience. We've been criticizing them for so long, and now everything's going their way. I mean, they deserve the credit. $6.5 million. That was the number I think that I had for him in our show. So good deal.
Yeah. $6.5 million. I don't. Show us where that is, Jonathan Figueroa. Let us know where 6.5 came from. But yeah, and this is exactly how the Chargers work and how Tom Telesco work. Anytime we go to podcast, signings coming. Within the hour of us finishing, from the start to the end, there's always a signing. So Morgan Fox, which is a huge deal. I don't know. You can't imagine that he's getting what his D-line coach wanted, which was 8 to 10 or whatever the number was. 6.5 makes a ton of sense, but Morgan Fox, this is a move that is, and we're just talking as we're going live. So let me know when Fox's numbers come out. But this was the best move for the Chargers and for Morgan Fox. Always having career years under Staley, one of his best seasons this past year. It was an integral part of that defensive line, if not one of the best defensive linemen for the Chargers last year. As good as Sebastian Joseph Day was, how an unsung hero Austin Johnson was before he went down. It was absolutely key that they brought him back. Now you solidified your defensive line now. It's 2-year deals, what Charger Berries is saying. I'm waiting for a text back. All I got was Morgan Fox is back, so we knew he was coming back.
Your guy texted you that during the show
while you were talking. Yes,
I thought you were responding to the chat.
No,
that's awesome.
I'm trying to. Oh, I saw
because it's all over the chat.
Yeah. Oh, okay. No, I was trying to tell you. I was waiting until you wrapped it up.
You were waiting for me to shut up.
Yeah, and then the chat's going, and I'm like, all right, well, it's out now. So the tweet was edited. It was sacks, not dollars. So we'll know dollars amount soon. Chargers Barry says it's a 2-year deal. If I get any numbers, I'll let you know. But look, they've got their D-line solidified now going in the draft. We talked about solidifying your position group. Austin Johnson, SJD, Morgan Fox is back. You got Tito as depth. They've got it all locked down. Can wait on some defensive line. And and so it was key to get Morgan Fox back, and they got him. And
I still think Fehoko will be back. So
you do?
I do. Okay. I don't think he's going to have much of a market. I think he's freaking annoying on Twitter, and I think him trying to sell himself on Twitter is going to annoy the shit out of GMs. He is. Somebody should shut down his Twitter account. But I think he'll be back. That's my guess. I think he's one of those guys that he's going to find that he's not as in demand as he thinks he is, and he'll be back. So, and as important as the numbers are, let's just point out, we talked about this when we did the internal free agent show. You're talking in Fox, you're talking about a 265 or 270 pound defensive tackle. He has a unique fit and a unique value to the Chargers in this scheme. And I said when we did the internal free agent show, this is a guy that I am confident is going to come back, because I think he's going to look at he's going to survey the landscape of the DL market. He's not going to have the demand he thinks he's going to have because he's undersized, and teams are going to look at him and try to fit him in the box of a run stuffer and say, nope, he can't stop the run. And he isn't bendy or twitchy enough to be on the edge. He's got to play inside and run those stunts. Nobody knows him. Nobody gets him better than Brandon Staley. He was the one guy that you look at and you say, if he's smart, if he knows what's good for him, he's going to be back. And that was the one guy of all the key guys that I was so confident would be back, just because of everything Brandon Staley's done for him while he's played for him. It just made too much sense for him to come back.
Most career starts of his career with 12, most career sacks of his career this past season was 6.5. Absolutely no brainer for both parties. Just an awesome addition last year, awesome addition here in free agency. And just for those of you that aren't in the Discord, I've been dropping nuggets about free agency of anything I got, and then also about the draft. And this aligns with what we got earlier at the beginning of March is the date on this, is right after the combine. The Chargers, and we'll just drop this now. We're probably going to roll these out slowly when we talk about the position groups, but let's get into it now since we're talking about an interior defensive lineman. The Chargers have one grade, first round grade on an interior defensive lineman, and that was Jalen Carter. Now, he had his own pro day today. This was like right after the combine. So whether it is changed or not, they had one first round grade on interior defensive lineman. They had two, count them, just two different day 2 grades on interior defensive linemen. That was Cansey and Brian Brees in that order. So if you take into consideration that the Chargers say, look, Jalen Carter is probably not falling to us. If he does, there's some real issues. And then you got Cansey and Brees, who might very well go before they pick in day 2. You can't just wait if you're trying to find a starter on your defensive line. So if you take into consideration they've only got 3 guys worth taking a pick in the first 2 days, you lock up Morgan Fox. It's probably going to be a 1 or 2 year deal. You kick the can a little bit further down the road, and now you've got your starting defensive line locked up. You got Tito as depth. Maybe you bring in a Fehoko, or maybe a guy like, I don't know, Greg Gaines, who they also have some interest in the defensive line in free agency. So perfect move for the Chargers, aligns with what we got earlier about the draft. And now they've got their starting line locked up.
Yep. Now we can move past all the reactionary, emotional tweets about how Fox is definitely gone because he's a Charger. So
Yep.
good news.
Yeah, very good news. All right. Anything else we want to talk about? I think if we draw this podcast out, John Johnson's going to sign with the Chargers. We'll hear, maybe Leonard Floyd is
They'll
ready
sign
to take a pickup.
OBJ,
OBJ, yeah, all of it.
Miko Hardman, Gesicki.
Yep, they can get all those guys, and if we just go long enough, then maybe they'll do it. So moving on to other moves. So obviously huge for Morgan Fox. This, I know Tranquil and Trey Pipkins were their top priorities. For me, Morgan Fox was up there too. I would have added Morgan Fox to that list of have to bring them back. They were key to the team last year, and you cannot go into the draft without a guy like Morgan Fox. They didn't. This is huge for the Chargers. I don't know what the numbers are. We'll see, because again, it's a funny market. I think I had him at like $4 million per year, but it's like, is he an edge? Is he an interior defensive lineman? He's too light to play a 0-1, but a guy that's obviously a movable piece for this defense and key to Brandon Staley's scheme. And they brought him back. This was a perfect fit. Great for both parties again. So moving past that, Jamie and I obviously give the unanimous thumbs up because we both loved Morgan Fox and thought he was a top 3 priority in terms of eternal free agents. So big thumbs up for that move. Moving past it, which isn't as exciting as a Morgan Fox signing, the Chargers tendered kicker Cameron Dicker and then offensive tackle Foster Sorel.
Yeah. Sorel
Yeah.
was, Dicker we knew was going to happen.
Of course.
Dicker we knew was going to happen because that's the first step towards cutting Hopkins, which will probably happen as a post June 1 cut tomorrow or Friday. Sorel, they didn't wind up tendering Storm Norton. So by tendering Sorel, they basically chose Sorel over Norton. I think, this is a group that they focus on traits, maybe more so than skill set, than polished skill set. And I think Sorel, they clearly feel like he has better traits that they're looking for in terms of athleticism and other things than Norton does. And I think, we saw it last year. They went out of their way not to put Norton on the field. After starting all year in 2021, they did whatever they could to make sure Norton was not active and not on the field last year. And I think that was pretty telling. So good news to see that they're moving on from Norton, because I was tired of that experiment. I guess it's always possible he could be back on a lesser deal. They just didn't want to sign him for, $2.7 million or whatever the number was. But for now, at least, he's not coming back. Sorel's coming back. They're going to look to develop Sorel at swing tackle. Maybe you see a developmental tackle late in the draft, kind of like what they did with Brendan Hymas a couple of years ago. But for now, these are whatever. These are fine moves. It's nothing to get excited about or write home about, but they're just kind of filling out the roster.
Yeah. And we had talked about exclusive rights free agents. This is like easy money. This is you tender them, you get them for a year for the league minimum. It's just a process. They were going to do this with all these guys. So this is they didn't do it with Kaman Hall, which yet at least they hadn't announced it, which is a little bit of surprise. And Merrill, the interior defensive lineman, they didn't do it with either. But they got it done with Foster Sorel, who obviously played some offensive tackle, had to start at right tackle a few times when Pipkins went down. There's some offensive tackle depth, and then Dicker's the new kicker. So this is an easy move to make with both guys.
Yep, very easy, very procedural. Doesn't require a whole lot of thought. You're just basically, at worst, you're reserving roster spots for guys maybe you find in the draft or later in free agency, but developmental pieces they clearly want to hang on to.
Okay, well, I guess it's time to move on to draft stuff.
Let's do it.
Easy 25 minutes on like no moves that happened, but enough to bring in a Morgan Fox signing, which was exciting for the time being. And I wish I could have broke it earlier, but here we are. So let's talk, Jamie. You got safeties, I got corners. We'll talk about maybe the top 5-ish, give a sleeper, and then we can kind of move on from there. So why don't you go ahead and start, Jamie? Did you watch any corners by chance?
I did not. I just watched the safeties.
All right, so let's move on to safeties. I'll let you start because I watched the two you told me to before I do the big rewatch. Let's do Brian Branch, which I know is consensus top safety in this class at Alabama. Let's talk about him.
Yeah, so Branch is a fun prospect. He's a guy who his first 2 years at Alabama basically played exclusively in the slot, in the nickel. Played sparingly as a freshman, played a little bit more as a sophomore. And then last year, his playing time increased and where he played varied. He's a guy who plays slot. He plays single high. He plays two high. He can play in the box. He blitzes off the edge. I've seen him actually play edge with his hand in the ground. He does a little bit of everything. The things that he does really well, he's super instinctive. He's very instinctive against the run, whether he's playing near the line of scrimmage or he's playing deep. One of the first things you see almost no matter which game you're watching is him either in the slot or playing safety, a running back trying to get the edge of the outside, and he attacks the line of scrimmage like a freight train. He closes like a bat out of hell, and he blows guys up. And he's not reckless either. He takes smart, disciplined pursuit angles. He wraps up. He drags guys down, blows them up. He is a fantastic tackler, arguably the best tackling safety in this class, certainly one of the top 2 in my opinion. You don't see him take bad angles. He doesn't miss. The technique is really clean. He plays the run and finishes tackles almost like a linebacker. Very fun to watch tackling. In terms of coverage, I mentioned it, he plays everywhere. Slot, single high, two high, box, wherever, and he's good pretty much everywhere he plays. He can cover half the field. He can play single high. One of the knocks on him, honestly, is he doesn't have what I would call electric speed. I think he did at 4.55, something around there. He's not super twitchy or explosive. I'm not sure I'd want him playing single high in like a cover 3 base zone defense. I think that would be a little bit much for him. You can see him sometimes in the slot, particularly when he's playing off man. Speed is an issue for him deep. Tennessee attacked him quite a bit deep vertically with Jalen Hyatt, especially this year. And it was an issue. Long speed is an issue. Recovering speed is an issue. Closing speed is really good once he diagnoses and he decides what he's going to do. The closing speed is about as good as it gets in this class. But long speed, the ability to run with faster, twitchier wide receivers is a little bit of a challenge. So you'd have to kind of pick your spots in terms of who you want him to defend in the slot. I think you can match up with tight ends, some bigger slot receivers, guys who aren't as shifty, aren't as explosive. You can hang with them, but I don't think you want him matching up with speed in the slot, particularly not an off-man coverage. Ball skills are really, really good. He is, again, quick to diagnose. He understands route combinations. He understands what defenses are trying to do. He's quick to undercut in-breaking and out-breaking routes in front of him. Outstanding ball skills. He attacks the ball in the air, tracks it really well. The only knock on his ball skills really is that when he's playing deep, he can have a hard time getting his head around and locating the ball in the air. You'll get some pass interference calls when he's playing deep because he'll lose the ball and he'll play the man. But other than that, there is a lot to like about him. I have, in terms of a grade, I have an 82 on him. The speed held him back a little bit. Some concerns about man coverage held him back a little bit. I think he's probably better in short zones, but he can play some man. Super versatile, but I haven't graded out the whole class. My guess is he's probably going to wind up being a late first-round pick, even at an 82. Late first, early second. Probably the first safety off the board. Love him, though. I think he would really thrive in a cover 2 or a cover 6 base scheme. Hint, hint. He could play cover 3, like I said. Probably not his strength, but he could definitely do it. And he could play dime linebacker, and he can play in the box. There's no technical here.
Oh man, you're chunking here, Jamie. You're chunking out. We're losing you. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, we lost you for a little bit. So grade is 82.
Grade is an 82. Yep.
Okay. And what about so I watched him too. I mean, it's great that he's kind of your do-it-all DBs. You got to love your movable pieces. He could play anywhere. Loved him as a blitzer. Very good downhill run stopper. He was even a returner for Alabama, so he did a lot. I agree with you. The deep balls are the issue. You don't want him, chasing any receivers 10, 15 yards downfield. But I think he really broke out his junior year as a bona fide difference maker near the line of scrimmage. He had 14 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. So you don't love him as a center fielder, but he's a guy that you could definitely move around. Slot corner, either safety spot, nickel dime linebacker, really a do-it-all guy that you could have attack the line of scrimmage. I got an 81, so we're very close on the grade there. In terms of the Chargers, are you thinking more of a nickel dime linebacker? Or
probably a dime linebacker early on. I think he certainly has the skill sets to play deep as a 2 high. I wouldn't want him covering the whole field as a single high. Some slots matchup based, in my opinion. So yeah, I think he would be very solid to start as a dime linebacker and rotational deep safety in those cover 2 and cover 6 looks. And like I said, some matchup slot.
Yeah, I don't see him dropping to 21. But yeah, he's a very good player, and I hope he lands in a system where a coach GM move him around as a piece and not just stick him as a single high and say, hey, you're the free safety. Because really, I haven't watched the whole safety class, but it just seems like it's not very strong. And
it's not.
If you can get the best safety on the board, some people will be like, hey, 1 for 1, let's piece him in at free safety. And I hate that for him because he's so good near the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, he is. And I forgot to mention that. I mentioned that he's solid as he has played some edge, flashes the ability to bend. He's an outstanding blitzer. You can really see his instincts when he's asked to blitz off the edge. He even blitzes in the A and B gaps. He's a terror against the running game when they asked him to blitz because of his anticipation and his instincts and his tackling ability. And he also has the ability to get to the quarterback a little bit. I hate to even make this comparison because it's really not fair to him or the person I'm comparing him to, but some very light Derwin flashbacks in college, just in terms of his ability to play on the edge and impact the game against the run and against the pass as a pass rusher / blitzer. He is not the natural pass rusher that Derwin is, but he is very effective from the slot and off the edge as a blitzer.
Yeah, he's getting a lot of Minka Fitzpatrick comps. I saw like 2 or 3 of them. So, it's in that range. I wouldn't make that comparison, but I understand it in the versatility for sure. So we'll just go back and forth here, and I'll cover the corners. You can take the safeties. I watched one other safety, but from here on out, I think we'll just do our own analysis here. And my first player here is Christian Gonzalez, who's the corner out of Oregon. Good play length and good play speed, good length, play speed. Outside corner, play both man and zone. Feet are very fluid. He can cover basically every area of the field. The play speed is his best trait for sure. He was a guy who's used as a blitzer at Oregon. He had his best year this past season. There were some issues to me while watching him that popped up. One, he is not a willing tackler, which is going to be common among most college DBs. You'll hear Jamie talk about it. I'm going to talk about it, I'm sure. These guys make a lot of business decisions. will tackle if they have to, if they're one-on-one, but not a lot of guys are just going to put their face in the fan, so to speak, and get in there and get their hands dirty and make a tackle. So not a willing tackler, very touchy-feely downfield, not a good processor in the run game in my mind, but Gonzalez is a literal track star. He bounced around from Colorado to Oregon. Production bounced around too with the moves, but he settled in this past year. And, the progression is really nice, seeing that from time to time. But he showed some real improvement with the ball skills the back half of this past season. Really good instincts and coverage. He improved in the run game at the end of this year. But the issue to me is he flashed the ability that people are banking on the second half of the 2022 season and not looking at a whole body of work. While it's great that he got hot towards the end of the year and showed his potential, this to me is a guy that just doesn't flash CB1 quite yet. I don't know that anybody can look at him and say, I can trust my eyes here. This is going to be your CB1 with a guy that really has shown you a 7-8 game span where he was really good, and then years of up and down play. So I am not as high on Christian Gonzalez as a lot of other people. I don't have a first round grade on him. I don't think he's a first round player. I don't know. I mean, I could see where if a lot of these other corners go off the board that you may want to make that move, but I'm just not there with him. I've got an 86, which is kind of a mid second round grade for Christian Gonzalez. Flashed a lot of potential, but body of work, I don't see it.
Yeah, mid second round grade in terms of numbers, but more often than not, that winds up being like a mid to late first round pick.
Right.
Once we grade out the class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Unfortunately, my computer just crashed, so all my notes are
gone.
Not gone, but not visible.
All right, I can move on.
I'll do the next safety. I'll go off the top of my head.
Nice.
Because I remember him pretty well. So the next guy I watched is Dyer Brown out of Penn State.
Okay.
Another guy who played all over the field in college. He presents himself as being very versatile. I'm not sure he's really that versatile. I think there are certain things you really don't want him to do. Another guy who did not test well. You can see some stiffness in his hips on film. You can see some kind of laboring with pursuit angles at times. And the long speed is not there, and the recovery speed is not. I think he ran like a 4.62 or a 4.65. So not overly explosive as an athlete, not terribly fast. He played single high, he played two high, played some slot, played a lot of box, played a lot of edge. Another guy in goal line situations, he is almost always playing edge with his hand in the dirt, setting the edge. Very physical, very good tackler. Another guy who attacks the line of scrimmage like a freight train and blows guys up. I think his feet can be a little clunky at times, both in his back pedal and in terms of pursuit angles. Sometimes he needs an extra step to transition into or out of his back pedal, and change of direction can be an issue. He'll take really aggressive pursuit angles, and he has to stop and start again. He can't really change his pursuit angle in the middle of a rep, and that'll force him to miss some tackles at times. To me, I like Dyer Brown. I think he's a guy who he actually reminds me of the kid that came out of Penn State last year who wound up on the Bears. I'm blanking on his name.
Brisker.
He reminds me a lot of Brisker. Not as good in coverage as Brisker is playing deep. He can play deep. If you're going to play him deep, it's got to be too high. It's got to be as a split field. You absolutely do not want him playing single high. But he is more instinctive playing closer to the line of scrimmage in short zones. I don't think you want him running long with a whole lot of really quick or fast slot receivers. He's big enough and physical enough to match up with tight ends for sure. Does have some good ball skills. Another guy who had a lot of tackles for loss, a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage as a blitzer, as an extra rusher, and some pretty good ball skills. So I think for me, Brisker fits best as a box safety.
Brown.
or Brown, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Brown fits best as a box safety, in my opinion. He's a guy who I think you can plug in. He will affect the running game. He can help out as a blitzer and an extra pass rusher. And you don't want him having to cover too much of the field at one time. You want to limit how much running he's doing in coverage. So probably best playing more of a cover 3 type system where where he can play down around the line of scrimmage a little bit more and play some short zones. But a good player. I believe I have a 74 on him, if I'm not mistaken. It's either a 74 or 75. So mid 3rd round pick, probably wind up being a mid to late 2nd round pick, just based on the way the numbers work out once we're done with our evaluations. But another guy who fun to watch. Obviously, I think he's going to be a very good player, but there are just certain things you don't want him to do at the next level if you're going to put him in a position to succeed.
Okay. All right. I didn't get a chance to watch him, so I don't have any notes yet. But from what I saw, there were some fun little pops from the little I watched of him. So the Chargers, as we mentioned earlier, we got some nuggets after the combine about directions of different position groups. And there were 2 players that the Chargers liked at 21 that if they fell to them, that they would be very inclined to take either one of them. And the first one was the guy I mentioned earlier, Christian Gonzalez. And the other one is the guy that I'll talk about now, and that's Devin Witherspoon at Illinois. 2 guys that are mocked to go in the top 20 picks, if not the 20, top 15, 20 picks. But guys in which the Chargers also like and will be definitely considering at 21 if they fall. So Gonzalez, you heard my take on him. I can't say I'd be a huge fan of Gonzalez there at 21 with all the other needs, and probably I haven't watched everybody yet, but I'm sure there's going to be better players available in my mind. But in terms of Witherspoon, he's a guy that I do like. He is a menace. He went from a 0-star recruit to now in the conversation for the best overall corner of this entire draft class. He is one of the more physical corners in this class too, not just in coverage, but in the run game. He is a violent tackler, which if you can find a DB that wants to tackle and that can tackle, you just love to see it. And in my mind, bumps up their grade a little bit. He is versatile in multiple schemes, plays with a chip on his shoulder. There are times they'll put him out an island and he's kind of smacking his helmet and he's ready to go one-on-one with anybody. You love that attitude from your corner and the kind of swagger and confidence that comes with that. Excellent closing speed, high football IQ. With that confidence, though, comes some lack of discipline. He will get grabby downfield. He will get penalized for it. And you will see him throw down receivers if they try to go to a jump ball down a sideline that's over the wide receivers' heads. He will make sure that they can feel him and his presence and will throw them to the ground. Got penalized a few times for it, but he does not want any easy catches, even when it's not quite catchable. So that'll work against him, but he's going to be more disciplined in the NFL. Coaches will definitely talk to him about that, but he has the top end speed to hang with any receiver on an island, has a closing speed to kill it in zone, violent tackler. He's got everything to really develop into a CB1. I think he's a day one starter, may take some bumps and bruises, but a guy that I absolutely love as my CB1. Devin Witherspoon has an 89, not quite a first round grade, but good enough that I'm sure he will be in my top 20 or so after all said and done, and a guy that I'd be very happy with the Chargers taking at 21. If he falls, I think he's the best corner in this class, and a guy that if he's there, even though you have J.C. Jackson, Asante Samuel Jr., and you've got Michael Davis, and you want to develop Jasir Taylor, I don't know how you pass on a guy like this that is a very clear cut CB1 down the road. So I like Devin Witherspoon, a guy I got an 89 on.
I'm sorry, I might have missed it. What did you say about his ball skills? What do his ball skills look like?
Very good. Very good ball skills, very good closing speed. It's all very good. The only issue really is the fact that he gets grabby downfield, was flagged for it a lot in college, and that he's just too chippy after the whistle.
Cool. I can't wait to watch him.
Yeah. Witherspoon's going to be one that you're going to want to watch. All right. What next safety do you have?
I'm still waiting on my computer. Do you want to take one more?
Sure. I'll take another one. So the next one here is Joey Porter Jr. We'll go with another Penn State corner here. This is a guy that I feel like a lot of people are lower on than I am. I like Joey Porter Jr. He's got the NFL size, potential to build on. He's got the instincts and ball skills. He's progressed every single season. When you watch each tape from year to year, he gets better and better, and he is a monster in press coverage. This is a thing that I would love to see him once he hits the NFL in press. He allowed a 58 passer rating, gave up 0 touchdowns, 7 incompletions when playing in press man. It's when you see him up at the line of scrimmage, you know good things are going to happen. I hope somebody takes him and uses him as a press corner. He goes toe to toe. Just like, and obviously he's the son of Joey Porter. He's got that kind of dad mentality too when taking on bigger receivers, tight ends. He goes toe to toe with them every time. He's a sticky tackler. I think he could definitely improve in that area, but there's some good reps, some bad. You could see the potential of him being a very good tackler. The concerns here with him are top end speed. I rarely saw Porter get burnt down the sideline. He rides wide receivers' hips downfield. A lot of people and the time speed are going to be concerns for some NFL GMs, but he ran a 4.46. That's not a red flag to me. The play speed to me is excellent. And he was also a track star. So I don't think the long speed is an issue. That's what he's been dinged with during the whole process, but I don't have any issues with it. Porter is another guy, way too chippy. He gets grabby downfield, will get called for flags. He's too physical. But to me, Joey Porter's got that long frame. It was interesting. I saw some Michael Davis comps to some people online because he's from Penn State, a longer, leaner corner, but and very good in press man, which we know Michael Davis is. He could definitely improve his tackling. He's going to need to be less grabby, but the confidence for Joey Porter is amazing. The chippiness he shows it just shows kind of the tip of the playing potential for Joey Porter, and a guy that, I mean, when you can play press and just dominate everybody in front of you, I think you got the makings of a pretty good corner in the NFL. I've got an 88 on him, which is higher than Christian Gonzalez, and I don't know anybody that's got Joey Porter Jr. over Christian Gonzalez at this point. I would take Joey Porter Jr. right now. I love the potential of Christian Gonzalez, but to me, the year of improvement, the physical capabilities, the long body type, that's all good to me. The downsides of the play speed doesn't concern me. The issues with the chippiness, I think you can get away with because that comes with the confidence. I love Joey Porter Jr. He has an 88, not quite a first round player, but a guy that I think top of 2. I think he's probably going to be a first round player in the draft. I think people are going to start putting Joey Porter up boards because I haven't really seen him that high in any mock. So I think very soon as the draft comes closer, I think Joey Porter Jr. is the guy that's going to get some first round hype for sure.
I feel like he was a guy who was getting first round hype all college football season. And then he took a hit at the combine. It happens every year, right? You've got a guy who's been a star for like 3 years, 2 years, 3 years. Everybody's been talking about him. And then he leading up to the combine, everybody starts nitpicking him. And then somebody tests better than he does and they vault him. And all of a sudden he's CB3 or 4 when he should be CB2 or CB1. It happens every year. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. You start to see like the track stars start to climb, like Tyreek Stevenson and Deontay Banks in this cornerback class. And you're going, but turn on the tape, man. You can't tell me that Porter is not better than a Banks or Stevenson when you watch their college careers, which I'm sure we can get to later. But Porter's a guy that should not be knocked. 4.46 is not a red flag to me. If you're running 4.66, maybe 4.76, maybe. 4.46,
that's a red flag. 4.76, that's a red flag. That's a problem. You're in a wheelchair at that point. You're pushing a walker down the field.
Listen, Jamie, you and I aren't running 4.76, so it's not walker territory or wheelchair, but it's a red flag for an NFL potential NFL player.
I may not be running a 4.76, but I'm not getting paid to run. So
right. No, absolutely not. So is your computer back up? You ready?
It's back up. I'm just waiting
Nice.
for the grades to load up again. So
Okay.
just give me a couple seconds here. So I'll go into the next guy on my list. The next guy that I watched. Let me think. Who am I going to go with?
Do you want to go with Cam Smith? Is he one of your
Chris
five?
Smith?
Oh, Chris Smith. Sorry,
Chris Smith. Yeah, I'll go with Chris Smith. So Christopher Smith from Georgia is the next corner or the next safety
I watched
that I'm going to talk about. Mm-hmm. Cool. And we can have a little back and forth on it. So Chris Smith does pretty much everything well. There is very little on the football field that Chris Smith cannot do. And there's basically no position in the secondary outside of outside corner that he did not play in college. He lines up in the slot. You'll see him line up on the edge. He plays single high. He plays two high. He plays both great. He'll play in the box at times. This guy comes flying downhill against the run. He diagnoses. He and Branch are easily the two most instinctive players in this safety class, and it's by a mile. It's not even remotely close. And these guys are not afraid to tackle, unlike some of the safeties in this class, and they don't have a lot of issues tackling when they get home. If they get home and they get their hands on you, you're going down, and it's probably not going to feel too good. Chris Smith blows guys up when he comes downhill. He wraps up, he tackles through them, he drives them into the ground. It's a lot of fun to watch him. I saw somebody in the Discord said it today. He attacks the alley versus the run, and he closes quick. He only ran a 4.62 or a 4.65 at the combine, so he's not super fast, but with his instincts and his closing speed, he gets home and he makes up for a lot of his deficiencies with just pure straight line speed. From a coverage standpoint, he is a lot of fun to watch when he's playing deep. And it's actually fun to watch when he's playing closer to the line of scrimmage as well. If you're talking about playing too high, I mean, the guy in a split field alignment, he covers a ton of ground. You almost never see teams challenge him deep when he's playing the deep safety spot. He tracks the ball well. He has great ball skills. He's able to undercut deep and intermediate in and out breaking routes. He anticipates and diagnoses route combinations as well as anybody, probably better than anybody in this class. He reads the quarterback's eyes. Smith gets super early breaks on the football. And once he gets that break on the football, there's a good chance he's going to get his hands on the football. He had 6 interceptions the last 2 years. Did Smith. He overall, between interceptions and pass breakups, he got his hands on 15 footballs the last 2 years. He is all over the field. Physical, fast, smart, instinctive. I think the only real knock on him is I don't think you want him in the slot a whole lot. He can't really play outside. He's really limited to single high, two high, and playing in the box, in my opinion. Some slot, he can run with tight ends for sure, maybe some bigger wide receivers, but I don't really think that's his strength. I think you really want him playing deep, reading the quarterback's eyes, getting early breaks on the football, and making plays on the football, because he is a terror in the middle of the field in particular. He diagnoses slants and posts extremely well, and he jumps routes like nobody in this class. He is so much fun to watch. He's a lot like Branch. Super versatile, smart, instinctive, makes plays all over the field. Similar knocks as well. Doesn't really have the long speed, doesn't really have the recovery speed. Once he gets beat deep, he's beat. He's really not going to recover, which is why you don't want him playing too much off man. Maybe a little bit press man to get his hands on guys and bully them, but you don't want him running downfield with guys man for man. I just don't think that's his strength. Mm-hmm. And he offers a lot as a run stuffer. I think he can play in the box really well, and he can definitely play deep extremely well. So I have an 81 on Christopher Smith, very high on him, like him a lot. This is the kind of guy who, if you're looking for a fit for the Chargers, they're probably not going to take a safety early because they just spent a 3rd-round pick on JT Woods.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking for a guy who can play all over and take some pressure off of Derwin playing deep and free up Derwin to be closer to the line of scrimmage, Smith is that guy because of how smart he is, because of how much ground he covers as a deep safety, and because of his ball skills. He gives you a lot of opportunities to create plays in the passing game. And he's just fun in a way that almost all the safeties in this class are not.
Yeah. So admittedly, I've watched 3 safeties, which is Christopher Smith, Branch, and then Dyer, who you mentioned earlier. But this felt so much like a Branch light, like a great value in that you can get a player like Branch, maybe not of the caliber. I've got him pretty close to what you do, point lower. I have him in at 80, but a player that you can get around later and pretty closely get the same kind of value and production out of. This would be an amazing kind of value safety pick here. And when you told me to watch Branch and then watch Smith, it was like, well, they're almost the same players. They're cut from the same cloth. They play great near the line of scrimmage. He could play, near the line of scrimmage or on the back end. What I liked about Smith that was a little bit different than Branch is Smith is a guy that loves to pop players, man. He is an absolute wrecking ball. As a free safety, and you're talking about the middle of the field, anything near there, he loves to lay the wood. He loves to make those guys feel you. And he does an excellent job, in my mind, reading the quarterback's eyes and breaking on the ball, which I absolutely love as the middle of the field kind of back end type of safety. Very effective last year. Attacking the quarterback as a blitzer. You talked about attacking the alley, knifing through the line and knifing through the line of scrimmage in the run game. He was very good in that regard too. I think when the issue of the long speed is definitely an issue. It's like Branch. You don't want him running 10 to 15 yards down the field with a wide receiver. But if he's kind of in the middle of the field back end, you love for him to break on it, and he makes up for all that in instincts. The other thing is the size, a little bit undersized. But a guy that isn't so small that he couldn't body up a tight end or bigger wide receivers. And he doesn't play like it either. He is best playing downhill where he can just read and react, punish anyone with the ball, let him play behind his good instincts. The versatility is great, being able to play him near the line of scrimmage and on the back end. Some guys are going to push him down the board because he's undersized. But to me, I've got, I think, a point differentiating between Brian Branch and Christopher Smith. So I had Branch at 81 and Chris Smith at 80. Go ahead.
I didn't consider Smith to be undersized. He's 6'2", 298 or 198. He's
you should
pretty big dude for a safety.
I looked at a spider chart. It is crazy how undersized it made him look.
Really?
I'll bring it up, but go ahead, keep going, and I'll bring it up.
Okay. So the next guy that I looked at was Brandon Joseph from Notre Dame. Joseph started at Northwestern, transferred to Notre Dame after a couple of years at Northwestern. I think he actually wound up playing 4 or 5 years in college, so he's a little bit older. But he's another guy who's a lot of fun to watch. Joseph, just looking at my notes here. So Joseph is another guy. I think he ran a 4.5 40, so he's a little bit faster than a couple of the guys that we've already talked about. In my opinion, Joseph is a prototypical deep split field safety. He could play some single high, but I really don't think that's his strength. And there's some slot flexibility against tight ends. I know this is getting repetitive, but all these guys are the same.
Yeah.
One thing that I love is he's very urgent, he's disciplined, and he's physical in run support. He's another guy who fills the alley really quickly, comes downhill, and looks to hammer people. Joseph takes intelligent angles to ball carriers, breaks down, and finishes tackles. I think the tackling technique needs some work. There might be a little bit of issues with play strength there, just a little. But I think these are things that can be corrected. And if they do get corrected, he'll be an even more reliable tackler. I think right now I've got him graded as a 7 out of 10 as a tackler, and I think there's potential for him to grow in that department. He's another guy. He reads the quarterback's eyes. He anticipates routes, and he gets early breaks on the ball. He'll undercut short and intermediate routes. Joseph very rarely ever loses track of his deep responsibilities. He's always where he's supposed to be, and he covers a ton of ground. Great ball skills. You see him jump routes, pluck balls out of the air with his hands, take really smart angles with the football, and he's got a really wide playmaking radius. He isn't an elite athlete by any stretch of the imagination, but he's able to catch balls outside of his frame, and he's got pretty good short area quickness when it comes to jumping from one zone to another. And he glides around the field. He isn't fast, but he doesn't look like he's laboring like some of the safeties in this class do. I did notice some hip tightness. There's some issues with change of direction. If he's got to stop his feet to tackle, he has a hard time getting started, and guys who are shiftier can make him miss in space. Again, I mentioned he didn't test super well. I think there's some athletic issues that showed up on tape, some limitations, kind of quicker than fast. Recovery speed could be an issue. I think he's big and fluid enough to hang with tight ends and could thrive playing in some short zones in the box, but really, he's at his best playing split field safety. I don't think you want him playing single high, but he's definitely very good playing split field safety. Another guy who I think would really thrive in a cover 2 or cover 6 base system. Some box flexibility, I think, because of his size and his ability to tackle and his willingness to tackle. There's some dime linebacker flexibility. Like I said, you don't really want him playing in the slot or playing single high, but there's a spot for him in a cover 2 or cover 6 based team scheme. And I've got a 74 on Brandon Joseph.
Yeah, so my grades are much higher for the corners, kind of, well, at least for me, showing that this corner class is better than the safety class. But let me show you. So the spider chart didn't come up, but here is the RAS score, all red, 5'10", 192. And we were talking about a red flag, 4.66 40. So
interesting.
Just something to keep our eye on. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the next corner here. And I'm trying to think of who the next one was. I think it was it Cam? Yeah, Cam Smith is the other one, who I actually was a fan of. He's the corner out of South Carolina. Another guy I'm higher on than most, I guess, because I'm not really seeing a lot of his name coming up in the top 5, but he's a versatile corner, played multiple schemes. I like Cam and press man, though. He's got very good hands, good feet, which help him play up on receivers. To me, Cam might be the best press corner in this class today. He is very well developed in that area. Good click and close, break on receivers and the football. His footwork is very crisp in coverage. One of the more cleaner tacklers in this class too, which obviously bumped his grade up for me. He's very aggressive, can get known to bite on some stuff because he's a little bit too aggressive. And another knock is the long speed. He kind of lets some faster wide receivers get behind him at times, but he played every spot, every corner spot, played some safety, played some dime linebacker. This is a very versatile corner that I absolutely like very much. I don't want to say love, but I like a lot. Polished corner, good footwork, play recognition, physical, way ahead of this class in terms of tackling in terms of the DBs. And I think he can be a day one contributor. I got an 86 on Cam Smith, which if anybody is keeping score at home, I believe is the same score as I have for Christian Gonzalez. So shows how close this top 4 corners are for me, the ones that I talked about, and a guy that I have a little bit higher than most.
The last of the 5, I watched 9 guys, but the last guy that I'm going to cover here is...
Yeah, I watched 10 corners.
Yeah.
Do you have a sleeper too?
I do.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So the last guy that I covered for our top 5 here is Jordan Battle, also from Alabama.
Okay.
And I was actually really excited to watch him because I've heard people talking him up quite a bit during this process. And watching Branch, he flashed a handful of times, making plays on the football. And I was super excited to see how much more of that he did. Unfortunately, what I saw watching Branch was all I saw. So he's not, I'm not really sure why people like him so much. When it comes to Battle, he is a solid athlete, but not a great athlete. Kind of like Branch. I think he ran a 4.52, 4.55, something like that. The awareness is not what I would have expected from an Alabama safety. He can be a little bit slow to react. He'll bite on head fakes. He'll pump fakes. He'll bite on window dressing. His feet tend to follow his eyes, so he'll drift out of position and get pulled out of position quite often from window dressing and eye candy. There are some flashes of Jordan Battle anticipating and breaking on deep and intermediate passes, but he's not around the ball all that much, which was kind of disappointing. Battle generally plays the man over the ball on the back end, so he'll look to hit somebody instead of making a play on the football when he does get there. Seems like he prefers to be more of an enforcer than a playmaker. Battle's playmaking range is better when he only has half the field to worry about. I don't like him really particularly as a single high safety. He'll be really slow to break on routes in front of him. His feet will stop. He'll get caught flat-footed watching the quarterback at times. Let's see. In terms of breaking on passes, it's not uncommon for him to be too aggressive with his angles and take away opportunities to make plays on the ball. His ball production was very limited in college. I said he flashed, but outside of the flashes, he wasn't breaking up a lot of passes or picking off a lot of passes. He is willing to come downhill and run support. The pursuit angles are not great. The tackling technique is not great. He can be kind of an ankle biter at times. I have serious questions about his long speed and his recovery speed. And I'd really like to see a guy who gets as much hype as he does be around the ball a lot more, both against the run and against the pass. And he just isn't. I don't think he's a particularly reliable tackler. He's relatively versatile. He played some single high, played some split safety. He's probably ideally suited to playing in the box, in my opinion. He played some slot, although I don't think that's a fit for him at the next level. So I see Jordan Battle as a guy who's really ideally suited to playing strong safety and being in the box. If he's going to play deep, it really needs to be in a cover two base scheme. I think he'd really struggle as a primary single high safety. Really do not think you want him in the slot, and the tackling's got to get a lot better. I have a 72 on him, which is a late third round grade. It'll probably wind up being more like an early third round grade once we grade everybody out, early to mid. But yeah, I see him as a day 3 guy. Late third, early fourth. He'll probably play in the league for a while. He'll probably contribute on special teams. He has got a chance to be a starter, but I don't think he's ever going to be much of a playmaker. I think he's just going to be a guy who kind of hoards tackles and is there, but isn't really. He's not really impacting the game a whole lot, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was hoping Battle would be a good one because I heard his name a lot, and just feels like this is a pretty light safety class.
There's a lot of guys in the middle of this class who are going to go in that day 2, day 3 range, third, fourth round, who have a shot to be, steady, productive players, but they've all got limitations that are going to keep them from being like playmakers. They're going to stick. They're going to be on the field. They're going to contribute, but I just don't think I don't think they have the instincts or the playmaking range to be playmakers at the next level.
So there's a question here from Jonathan Figueroa, which I'm sure is a thing we'll be using, a phrase we'll be using during this draft period. Jonathan wants to know, what do you mean by window dressing? Like he gets distracted watching the crowd, or he gets stuck trying to watch the play develop?
He gets stuck watching the play develop and trying to figure out where the ball is going. So window dressing is play action. It's RPO. It is motion, jet sweeps, misdirection, the line going one way, the play going the other way, all that kind of stuff. It slows his process down, and he gets caught watching instead of reacting. and then by the time he reacts, it's too late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is a term we've used before, but yes, that's basically it. In that he gets so caught up in trying to figure out what's going on with all the misdirection that he gets planted and not reading, reacting like he should be. So I'm gonna fire through this last corner, and then we can just move on because we're over an hour and 10 minutes because Morgan Fox broke and we talked about all that and everything else in between. So the next guy here is Kylie Ringo, which is the Georgia corner that a lot of people are very high on. And I think the Chargers might at some point convince themselves that they might like Ringo because he is a physical corner who is young. He's only 20 years old going into this draft. And he popped in Georgia's biggest games during the national championships. When it mattered, he showed up. And he's got the body type to be a boundary corner, a ton of room to build on that frame. And obviously he's another corner with track background. So there's that athleticism there. But the things that concern me are because he's 20, it feels like his play is a little immature. The angles are very bad when it comes to attempt to tackle, where he just lunges at guys. And then also it happens in coverage too. A lot of bad angles, sometimes right, sometimes wrong, but it's a lack of discipline and a lot of guessing. So for me, Kylie Ringo has the size, frame, speed to be an outside starting corner down the line. You'd want him to be a press corner. Having him read and react in zone would not be a good thing year one. So I think because he's young, he's going to take some time to develop, work on his understanding of what's out in front of him and not just lean on the athleticism, which he does a lot. And then because of the window dressing, he gets caught with his hand in the cookie jar and gets beat over the top sometimes because he's got his eyes in the backfield. And he's just going to be a work in progress early on. I think to start, he's going to be very hot and cold in the start of the NFL, but he has the tools to kind of be a starter down the road, maybe year 2 or 3. So I've got a 3rd round grade on Ringo. Some people got him in top 3, top 5. He is not in mine. He has a 78, which is a high 3rd round grade for Ringo. So let's move on. Let's move on here to our sleepers. I watched 10 different corners. You watched 9 safeties. So just give me a guy that you think maybe would be a good fit for the Chargers. Who's your sleeper?
I went back and forth on this because there were 2 guys that I liked enough to consider a sleeper, but I'm going to go with Daniel Scott from Cal. He is a guy who performed really well at the Senior Bowl, popped at the combine with his athletic testing. I think he ran a 4.45 as a safety, which is pretty good. But Scott is a guy who Tom Telesco is going to love this guy. I'm going to use 2 phrases here, and you guys are going to know exactly what I'm talking about. 2-time team captain, high football IQ. That's all you need to know. This guy, I guarantee this guy is on Tom Telesco's short list. He's a Senior Bowl standout. He's a leader, and he's considered to have a high football IQ and high football character. So Daniel Scott is a guy who I think he's really a true deep safety at the next level. Really best suited to playing single high or split safety, in my opinion. Some slot flexibility, but it's not really his strength. He reads the quarterback's eyes. Scott covers a ton of ground and has really, really impressive ball skills. He's capable of covering the whole field as a deep safety. Really, really impressive short area quickness to leap from one zone to the next and disrupt passing lanes and make plays on the football. Scott's a willing tackler. He's not what I would call a good tackler right now, but he has the willingness and the desire and the physicality and the temperament, I think, that if you clean up the technique and help him get a little bit stronger, he could be a pretty reliable tackler. I think right now he's really more of a help tackler than a finisher. Scott is he kind of resorts to ankle biting versus running backs, a little more likely to hit quarterbacks and wide receivers. If you ask him to play the slot, he'll get lost diagnosing route combinations versus condensed formations. So if you see a lot of stack, bunch, trips formations, those kind of things, he'll have a hard time figuring out what his responsibility is, and he'll get lost trying to dissect that. Play action, head fakes, and window dressings can pull him out of position at times. It's not a huge problem, but it is something that showed up on tape. His pursuit angles aren't great, and he's often off balance when he's trying to tackle. And I mentioned the functional and play strength is average at best. But I think if you're looking for a guy who can play the deep safety, a guy who can get somebody on the ground when you need him to, and a guy who can make plays on the football when it's thrown his way, Scott is a guy who offers potentially a lot of value. I think he's got the potential to contribute on special teams right away and help out as a deep safety with the speed and instincts and ball skills. I have a day 3 pick on Scott. I have a 64 on him, which is kind of a mid to late 4th round pick. I could see him going anywhere in the 4th or 5th round, but he's a guy I think who adds value in day 3, towards the middle of day 3, as a potential playmaking safety and a special team standout.
This is, I have to give credit to Sam G, which is a really good line here in the chat. 2-time captain and high football IQ. Sam says he sounds slow. That's a good line. All right, so I'm gonna move on to sleeper, and then I'll give you a little more information on corners in terms of what the Chargers like in terms of DBs. So my sleeper here is Clark Phillips. It's the Utah corner. I am a huge fan of this kid. There's three traits right away that to me I think he's a starter. Now the one issue, and I'll start off with the bad, is he's 5'9", 184, so a little undersized. Some teams are going to peg him as a slot corner in the NFL, but day 1 starter, technically sound. Even though he lacks size, makes up for it in technique, rarely breaks down in coverage. Number 2, high football acumen and instincts. The ball skills are absolutely off the charts. He is a player. He rarely gets beat ever. He's rarely out of position. He had 30 pass deflections and 9 interceptions at Utah, including 4 pick sixes, which is a school record. He is a see ball, get ball type of player. The third is the athleticism and the footwork. He is not going to get outrun on the field, and his recovery speed feels like a cheat code. Sometimes there'll be double moves. He might be a step behind. It's not too long that he's right in the hip pocket again with that wide receiver. They just cannot shake him. And I love that part of his game. The downside, twofold, the size. Bigger wide receivers can kind of get over the top of them from time to time. He sticks to bigger blockers because he's so small in the run game. But what I saw with bigger wide receivers, he all the time tries to squeeze them on the sideline. He can get boxed out by tight ends, but he does his best and will fight through a lot of that contact. That's why some teams might see him as a slot corner. The other is the tackling. He dives low on tackle attempts from time to time. That'll be a thing that he's got to clean up. But this is a versatile weapon in my mind. Like we talked about of those 2 safeties that we liked in Branch and Smith.
Yep.
Christopher Smith. Guys that you can move around, that is versatile. This is one of those guys. He could play in any scheme. Phillips is a bulldog in press. He can break on everything in zone. He played outside, inside, has elite ball skills and instincts. This is a movable DB piece. You can put him in the slot. You could put him outside, even with the size issues, quote unquote. You can play him at a dime linebacker, nickel linebacker. There's a lot of spots you can put Clark Phillips at, and he is a guy that can turn a game around. He can get his hands on footballs, and he just does not get beat very often. This is a kid that I have a mid-second round grade in. I have him like in the pack with Cam Smith and Gonzalez and Porter and Witherspoon. I think he's in that pack. Not a guy that's being mentioned a lot, but of the 10 that I mentioned or that I watched, Clark Phillips is my 5th ranked corner. A guy that you don't see that high. Emmanuel Forbes is a guy that is higher than him on a lot of mocks. Deontay Banks, higher than him on a lot of mocks. Even Tyreek Stevenson, higher than him on a lot of mocks and rankings. I've got him 5th. I like Clark Phillips a lot. Now, in terms of just some stuff we can mention about this DB group. After the Shrine Bowl, Senior Bowl, we got that the Chargers really like Julius Brents, which is a corner that you can keep an eye on. I think they even had a interview with him after the Senior Bowl. And in terms of DBs, some guys that they were pretty high on after the combine are some guys we mentioned. Deontay Banks, Jacorian Bennett, Sidney Brown, and DJ Turner as some day 3 DBs. So keep an eye on those names as we head into the draft process. Some guys that they were high on after the combine at least moved up their boards. So if you're not part of the Discord, go join it. Do we need to do a top 5, Jamie? Do you want to do a top 5? Or
yeah, let's do top 5 real quick.
All right, cool. I can start because I already mentioned them. But okay, so I've got Clark Phillip. I'll just do top 10 since we're here. Kylie Ringo, number 10. Tyreek Stevenson, number 9 with 79. Deontay Banks with an 80. Eli Ricks at 7 with an 83. Emmanuel Forbes at 84 at number 6. Clark Phillips is 5th on my list at 85. Cam Smith at 4. Christian Gonzalez at 3, though Cam Smith and Christian Gonzalez both have 86s. Number 2 is Joey Porter Jr. at 88. And Devin Witherspoon is my number 1 corner of this class. Of the 10 guys that I watched, I will be watching more, but a guy that got an 89.
So my top 9 are Jamie Robinson from Florida State, Sidney Brown from Illinois, who, by the way, I'm a little disappointed that they're as high on him as they are. I don't care for him at all. Daniel Scott at number 7, Antonio Johnson from Texas A&M, who is another movable piece who I really liked. At number 6, Jordan Battle, 72 at number 5, Brandon Joseph with a 74 at number 4, Dyer Brown with a 75 at number 3, Christopher Smith with an 80 at number 2, and Brian Branch with an 82 at number 1.
That is not good in terms of the outlook of the safety class. When you and I you're a point higher on Branch than me. I have an 81, you have an 82. You're a point higher on Christopher Smith than me. You had an 81. I had an 80. We're in the neighborhood. We are absolute neighbors on these 2 guys, at least that I watched. And they're the top 2 guys in your mind in this class. And they barely got a second round grade. So not great.
Yeah, it's not great. And if you watch any more of the safeties, you're going to be in some pain with some of these guys.
Yeah.
It's not a fun watch.
No, I got to watch them, and I'm not looking forward to it. So, guys, join the Discord, which is part of the Patreon. Subscribe to the YouTube because we're going to be doing these freaking breakdowns every week. We got videos coming almost every day right now. With more news, there'll be more videos, lots of solos. We'll probably break down some of these guys if we love them that much, if we find some time in the week while we're grading other guys. Maybe we can break down other guys. Who knows? But either way, we appreciate you guys watching for this hour and 20 plus podcast. 2 thumbs up for the signing of Morgan Fox, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.